Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Wrestle Talk Show, the show that's dedicated to wrestling's ins, outs, and what we like to call the in-betweens, the stuff that you, the fans, don't get to hear, or that's given a different spin-off that isn't always entirely the truth. First and foremost, as we always do, we've been keeping up to date with this week. So there isn't much to follow up with, but there is always wrestling news on a day-to-day basis, whether or not it be relevant or not. We'd like to thank our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and as always, the general following. As of last night, at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, WrestleTalkShow.webs.com became an ad-free site and what Webs calls a premium site, as that over the next couple weeks we'll be able to add more material, and you'll notice right off the bat again that it's an ad-free website now. You won't get any ads before the content, you just get the content, and we're allowed to do streaming video and all kinds of different stuff. A members only page will be up there for those who want to donate on a monthly basis. We will have a special area where you can get exclusive content not available on the free site, and we'll have more details on that as the weeks and days progress, or as we get closer to it, we'll have more information for that. There isn't really a segment. It's for tonight's show. It's kind of going to be a general rant on the couple of things that I pulled up tonight. Dragon Gate Wrestling, for those of you familiar with it, had its first internet pay-per-view Friday night. It did rather well. It did good in comparison to, say, an ROH, who's had 5 of them, and they seem to be going downhill, especially with them losing their major stars to World Wrestling Entertainment and whatnot. You kind of wonder what direction they're going to go in. And again, you might think we're biased, but as they progress and start producing something that's actually worth reporting on, we will bring that to you. But we wanted to put out there that they did have their first pay-per-view. It did go rather well. You can get full recaps on your favorite dirt cheap or your favorite wrestling covering show, or DragonGateWrestling.com. I'm going to assume. Just Google Dragon Gate Wrestling, and I'm sure you'll find their website. Mick Foley over the weekend, or the last couple days, was honored at a rally to restore sanity and or fear, which is headlined by comedian / Comedy Central talk show host Jon Stewart. Mick Foley and politics. I guess everybody needs something after wrestling. He's a very intelligent man. He does make a good point that he was one of the first to say, wait a minute, this shouldn't have anything to do with him. Kind of defending Linda, and we all made our jokes about that a couple weeks ago, but hey, leave Linda alone. It's wrestling in general, and wrestling shouldn't have anything to do with politics, and vice versa. No, we agree with that, Nick. Again, we'll reiterate our problem. Our problem is she has nothing but wrestling in her background, so we cannot judge anything else. Okay? And I'm going to kind of bounce between these two because that kind of opens the door for this next one. It's announced that this coming Tuesday night, the entire McMahon family, including Vince McMahon, will be in attendance to have a election night celebration. Linda, you've all but lost. And Tuesday night, if Connecticut has any kind of brains, you will lose again. With a nice run, with a nice try, but in my opinion, and we could be wrong because we've seen votes come down to the nitty gritty, but in my opinion, she dodged too many questions. did not give direct answers to the questions she was asked. She kind of gave questions to questions. And to me, that's not someone who wants to change things. That's someone who doesn't want you to hear about her dirty laundry until she's got what she wants. I'm sure she wouldn't care what kind of questions you asked after you secure that victory for her in Connecticut. But right now, she won't concede to anything. And WWE has spent too much money to not see her win. So these recent plugs for the Miracle Network and how good WWE is, it's just it's an utter failure if you ask me. Because they do not, in these recaps, I'm sure you've seen it, they do not address steroids. They address the wellness policy like it's not, like it's always enforced, and it's not. It's a piss poor wellness policy. They do not take care of their own. So for them to call themselves a family is preposterous. You work under Vince McMahon. You are in no way, shape, or form part of his family. Believe me, guys. And it's not a diss at the wrestlers. It's a diss at Vince. But you are in no way, shape, or form on his radar when it comes to family. Undertaker pulled from the Fan Appreciation Day. I'm getting more details as to why that is. John Cena is reportedly off. Triple H is still scheduled to be there. You gotta wonder why they pulled the Undertaker, and we will find that out as soon as possible. I guess there will be a segment. The three biggest storylines in wrestling have nothing to do with wrestling. If you, the fan, have been following, it is Linda McMahon for Connecticut Senate, number one. Vince McMahon versus the First Amendment, that's number two. And Linda McMahon versus Blumenthal. Neither of these three are making any money for WWE or the surrounding wrestling companies. As you've seen, TNA gets a good run 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and still finds a way to screw it up. None of these companies, outside of merch and the little here and there shit, and their live events, none of these companies are making braggable money. And we'll put it out there again. Why is that? Because fans want stories. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Fans want stories that you can follow. TNA, this one's for you. Fans do not want matches that don't mean anything. You cannot have a match that gets you a ratings boost, gives the fans the impression it's going to go somewhere, and then the next week you pretend like it never happened by not following up with what you set up. It's called follow through and execution. Two things TNA needs to learn. Follow through is the most important. Execution, some might say they've had a problem with it, others might say they execute too early, all of which are true, but what they need is follow-up. You cannot bounce around from a match to match and it not mean anything. And this is where we come full circle. The Nexus and John Cena is interesting because people want to see A, whether or not John Cena gets out of it, or B, when John Cena beats up Wade Barrett, and C, what the Nexus will make John Cena do next. If they drag it out too long, could it get old? Yeah, they all could. Any storyline could. But considering that Survivor Series looks pretty damn good, they're doing alright so far with this. If Wade Barrett basically said when he wins the World Heavyweight title, it will relieve John Cena of all of his responsibilities. Now here's the only catch for those of you who didn't follow along. That means that not only will he have John Cena in his corner, Wade Barrett, but John Cena's basically got to guarantee Wade Barrett that he's going to screw over Randy Orton to get the victory, which in turn would get Cena his freedom. So you've got a lot to build on there, because with that John Cena screwing Randy Orton, or the potential for it, you then have the potential for a Randy Orton John Cena feud that could come from this. But where I kind of took note, and where it kind of doesn't make sense, maybe you call it over evaluation, I call it looking at what's presented. Randy Orton over the last couple of weeks has made comments to John Cena that he knows he's in a rock and a hard place. So who's to say, and I know WWE wouldn't go this route, but who's to say Randy Orton loses the title and says, hey, at least you're at a nexus? I know it's far-fetched, but all of the wrestlers in the back know that this is not what John Cena wants to be doing. He does not want to be taking orders from Wade Barrett. But I respect that a deal is a deal. I also respect that the SmackDown needs to be laid on Wade Barrett. And I believe in some way, shape, or form, even though Wade Barrett will probably walk out champion, or they'll find some way for Barrett to lose, but Cena to still get screwed if they want to keep playing it out. Who knows? They might ride this out till WrestleMania, which, you ask me, if you do it right, could increase your buys for WrestleMania. But since we're so engulfed in this Undertaker shit, who's to say what'll happen? If you visited WrestleTalkShow.webs.com, you'll see my recent blog on why I think Brock Lesnar and Undertaker will not happen at WrestleMania. Allow me to take the next minute or two to close up and recap that blog by saying I don't think it'll happen because WWE has spent the last 17, this will be, 18 years on this winning streak with The Undertaker. We're supposed to believe, now I can believe it to an extent. Brock Lesnar has stated that he wants a break from UFC. Everybody seems to think this will all come together because Brock would demand a big payday from Vince, probably in the area of $3-4 million to appear for one night, and it would be kind of a throw match. But then you've also got to take a couple things into consideration. UFC doesn't want to look bad. WWE probably doesn't want to trash a storyline that's been 17 years in the making, and the one that is the foundation for WrestleMania. The last decade, you've been able to guarantee that Undertaker is going to put his streak up against whoever he's feuding against. So WWE is not going to scrap that storyline for Brock Lesnar, not unless Taker decides to retire this year, and that's the way he wants to go out. In another sense, you don't see Brock coming back because the personal issue that's outlined in that video excerpt from UFC where Taker and Brock exchange words. Undertaker had a lot to do with molding Brock Lesnar in the WWE, and the way Brock left, he was pushed by everybody. A couple of people were looked past because Brock Lesnar was supposed to be the next big thing. So everybody gave Brock the push that the company wanted. How did Brock respond? Brock went to football. Brock sold out Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, and then Brock went to football. What happened after that? Brock couldn't cut it in football, so he became an ass beater. And now he's quoted as saying that if the contract were right enough, he would go back to work for Vince. I really don't see it happening. It would be a one-night thing. Taker would probably win. You couldn't go anywhere with Lesnar because Lesnar's contracted with UFC. And it would just be a once-in-a-lifetime match. Once. All this and more at WrestleTalkShow.webs.com. Thank you for listening, and until next time, This is Jeff Zimmerman saying see ya.